Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always joined by James. How you going, James? James?
We needed the crickets. We should have had the crickets.
I have the crickets somewhere.
Has anybody looked outside for James?
James? Oh, that's right. He's gone to Europe.
Yeah, I forgot.
No,
Okay.
I should have had like a wrestling promo tag team. Like, all right, brother, this is gonna be the real Tuesday Review. Yeah,
That's it.
no James.
We had the Hulk Hogan taking the shirt
Yeah.
off meme. Going.
We're coming for you. Wait, no, that
Oh, lucky we're on the delay.
was the Booker T special.
Wow.
See, for non-wrestling fans, they're just like, what the hell are they talking about?
Well,
For the-
Cam's rubbing the microphone.
For the other three people,
Apologise.
that do watch wrestling, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
All right. So yes, today is.
How you doing, Alan?
Oh, sorry. I'm also joined by Alan. How you going, Alan?
Good.
We got already
got
off
derailed
topic.
already.
Yeah, already derailed.
That's the way we likes it.
That's it.
James, if you're listening.
How you going, Alan? You good?
I'm good, thank you.
And how you going, Callum?
I'm
You
alright.
good? Also joined by Callum. Today's feature review is Longlegs, the new Nicolas Cage kind of horror thriller movie. And I guess we'll start spoiler free. It's the longer it's sat with me, the more I think about it, the kind of weaker it is a bit.
Yeah.
I had problems with it. I call it the movie suffers from, we'll call it the problem of the two Davids. The Davids Fincher and Lynch. So it tries to emulate both of these directors in its story. It's a story about catching a serial killer. Classic David Fincher.
Yeah.
And it has supernatural kind of peripheral supernatural weirdness like David Lynch.
Yeah.
And it doesn't nail either of those particularly well. I'll be non-specific for spoiler free. There's classic David Fincher. There's letters, coded letters, a la Zodiac, right? And a large part of Zodiac and those kinds of decryption mysteries is the solving of the thing. And in this, it's kind of just, it's solved in like 2 minutes and they move on. I'm like, there's no fun in that. You know what I mean? You want to puzzle. The audience wants to puzzle it out with you.
Yeah, I think that this film has so much information that it wants to convey that it probably should have been a mini-series or like a TV show.
I wouldn't even say that. It just needed another half an hour. The movie's only an hour 40.
Yeah,
right?
but it tries to do, like you said, so like a good David Fincher movie, for example, it focuses most of the movie on detection and deciphering or whatever. Where this movie tries to have its fingers in all of the different pies.
Yeah.
But like you said, because it's trying to do all of these things that spin so many plates, it can't nail the one thing that like a good movie is memorable for.
Yeah. So that's the David Fincher kind of, we'll say, homage that I have problems with. It delves into the letters and the other kind of procedural aspects of,
The case files.
The case file aspect of your serial killer chase movie. And it doesn't particularly nail that too well because it doesn't focus on anything. It moves very quickly into different aspects of that investigation. And it's just kind of all explained away as, I managed to discover this. I did this.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but we want to see that happen. You know what I mean? And the other problem is, the problem with the David Lynch side of this movie is it's never explained, but that's not always a good thing. David Lynch, he doesn't explain the supernatural weirdness or just the general kind of weirdness and malaise that he has in his kinds of, film and TV, right? Twin Peaks, he doesn't explain everything, but you don't need it to. But this, he has the same kinds of things, like we'll say weird, mysterious hand movements, gestures, and kind of, objects of power, right? There's things that aren't explained, but they should be.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
he doesn't manage to pull it off.
Sorry.
No, you go on.
There's a medal. I'll leave it contextless, because it's spoiler free. There's a metal sphere that's a point of significance in the film, and they kind of just explain it away briefly, and then it becomes relevant at a later point in a certain scene. And then I'm like, all of this should have been treated as an investigation in and of itself, and you can't just show evidence or an interesting point and then say, "Oh, okay, next." You know what I mean? Like you were saying,
point.
They don't focus enough on the clues. They don't talk about what the clues mean. They don't focus on the victims. They don't focus on actual casework. There's no casework. Even at the start of the film, due to events I won't spoil, they just happen to know what house the killer's in. You know what I mean? And so it's like this thing where they're trying to move the story quickly because they have so many story beats they feel they need to hit that the actual world building collapses on itself.
Yeah.
And you get to the third act and then they literally explain everything away. And it's like the cheapest, roughest shortcut I've seen in a movie like this.
The movie needed to be an extra half an hour at least.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have to kind of rush the ending.
Yeah.
It should have been puzzled out piece by piece as the movie goes on, instead of like a quick exposition dump right at the end.
A good thing about a movie like this is it's full of so much. So for all the negatives we'll talk about, I personally liked this movie only because I think that the movie is completely full of dread. From the very first scene to the very last scene, there's a palpable uncomfortableness that radiates from it.
If listeners look at my Letterboxd review, that's the one thing I do say. Like, all of these writing issues aside, the movie excels in vibes. It feels like a nasty, sinister movie, and a lot of that is to do with its color tone, right? Its color palette, its grading, it's
threatening,
it's threatening aura, if you want, And the movie is full of, like, what are they, Dutch angles, whatever they're called.
Yeah,
where it's
you
like
don't feel safe.
You're looking. The camera is kind of looking up at someone from below their sort of eye
their
line.
perspective,
and it keeps. The movie's full of those kinds of camera angles that keep you on the edge of your seat because you can't really see as much as you want.
Makes you feel vulnerable.
You can't see like the sides, or it's like you're boxed in, and that's by design to keep you on the edge of your seat. It's tense.
Yeah, that's probably one of the things I enjoyed the most about the movie itself, because as you said, in retrospect, I was like, initially I started with saying, well, maybe 4 stars. But as I've kind of mulled on it, I'm like, no, I think the best I can give it is about 3.5.
That's where I ended up on. Yeah.
I've been trying to update my Letterboxd, but maybe the ghosts are in on it, and they're not letting me. They're like, unexpected error occurred. I'm like, ooh, maybe there's a conspiracy going. But no, the 4x3 scenes, lovely, like amazing, great way to create the atmosphere, great way to indicate olden days, I guess you could say as well.
Yeah. Good practical filmmaking.
Yeah,
good film.
Great filmmaking.
Yeah.
The way that it obviously naturally just stretches out at the start, into the full cinematic aspect ratio. I love that.
Man, that title card.
Yeah.
Horrifying.
The movie's visuals and filmmaking are excellent.
Yeah. Excellent unsettling atmosphere the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that saves this movie for me is I could watch it and I'll be just as uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing.
It's in the film.
Yeah.
Like it's like the demonic essence in the film.
Like, oh wait, there's a jump scare coming here. There's none of that. Well, there is a bit of jump scariness, but it's really not. It's the
but
whole
not in the way of
atmosphere.
a modern horror movie. Yeah. The movie is just full of dread and it's unsettling and it's tense. And that's like the best part of the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The whole film is designed around that to keep you uncomfortable. And it does excel at that.
I know if James was here, I know he'd say that the problem with the script is that
James was here, he'd say, it stinks.
No, James would say, and I heard him say this after he saw it, so I feel like it's worth repeating, because a lot of people would probably feel this way after they've seen it. He said he saw all the story beats coming, which I certainly didn't, but I'm prone to miss, I have my own canon, which I keep in my own head.
I'm a happy idiot at the movies. I'm not going to second guess and do this. I just let the ride take me. You know what I mean?
Oh
I
yeah,
don't think enough.
I try not to think ahead. Yeah.
I predict.
You just let it happen.
Pardon?
I like to predict a few.
Alan likes to predict it.
Yeah. I don't.
What was that movie we were watching where you called it? Was it Scream 5?
Yeah.
You're like, he's the killer right at the start, and I'm just like, I'm not saying shit. But if I do,
anyway,
it's ruined.
And I think the problem is that with they wrote themselves into a corner because they wanted the central character to be all important to the tale as a whole. And obviously I'm trying to keep this spoiler free, but certain events are made clear, which to me, they make sense because it's told in a linear way, and they present it in a way where, you get to see the events happen on film. So you can't say that's dumb. It doesn't make sense. But it just feels like a sloppy script that should have used a few more revisions. I don't think it's good for a movie like this to have people say, I knew this was going to happen. Because that just shows to me that you haven't mastered your craft. Because if you're writing a well-done serial killer thriller, people should not know who the villain's going to be. They shouldn't know what the plot devices are going to be. You shouldn't see it coming. It should be a mystery.
Yeah. Look, that's not always possible, especially if you're laying clues as you're going. But
Yeah, but
it is,
like I said, it's the way they design the narrative.
Yeah, it is sloppy in this movie a little bit. As I said, it really needed an extra half hour or even an hour just to kind of slowly reveal things.
Yeah.
Instead of
they gave all the clues to the protagonists just as a here you go.
Yeah.
They didn't have to work for anything.
Yeah.
Literally, they didn't
Well,
work...
again, that's what I said at the start.
Yeah.
I'm like, you've got the letters. Oh, these letters have been mysteries for 20 years.
No, I know.
And then,
I get
and
it
then
now.
in one night, our main character
Figures
is
it
like,
out.
oh, I figured out the letters. Of course you did. It's
And
like,
you
it's
know,
a bit
like
lazy.
I said, the very first thing, it's like, oh, the killer's there.
Yeah.
These are what the letters mean.
Oh, the killer left a letter in my house. How convenient.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's this person who suddenly now talks because plot reasons. You know, so it's sloppy, and like there's a big clue that they unveil because they sweep a floor that the original investigators missed because I guess they just didn't do well at FBI school. I don't, you know, like anyway. But what I do find, one thing I do want to mention while I remember, is this film's interesting because the director, Oz Perkins, he wrote another film that has similar themes, kinda, which I thought was really, really interesting. And I thought maybe they were connected, and I was looking into it. And no one's 100% sure, but it's probably not. The previous film he made was a movie called The Black Coat's Daughter, and it was again about Satan and the influence of Satan on a person.
Maybe it's the same Satan in universe.
They look different. The Satan in...
Well, Satan can change the way he looks, mate.
Spoiler
It's not a
alert,
problem.
there may or may not be images of Satan in the film, which is insinuated by the trailers anyway. I'm pretty sure you see Satan in one of the trailers anyway, so...
You do briefly, I believe.
The Satan in Longlegs looks more like a Baphomet archetype demon.
Like the goat Satan.
Yeah, whereas the Satan in The Black Coat's Daughter looks a little different. But I like to think that he updated it for a modern horror audience, because the Black Coat's Daughter was an indie horror movie by A24. And that movie had a much better script, but it didn't have the atmosphere that this one does. So it wasn't as scary, but the script was a lot tighter because I guess he had less money. You know what I mean? It's the big commercial problem where you get the money, but then I guess the script has to hit all these story beats that the studios want. So it might not all be on Perkins. We talk about the script, but maybe the Neon or the big production companies are like, we need this, this, and this. And he's like, well, this is my chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, again, like choices were made to throw certain elements into the story, and you just don't give them enough time or give them enough, like, development.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, if you just figure out this weird code in the first instant you try to, work it out.
Yeah.
And everyone's been searching for it for 20 years. It's like, well, what was the point?
Yeah.
What was the point?
I mean, you look at Zodiac, like I keep comparing this movie to Zodiac, but it has some similar themes with the letters being one, right? The Zodiac would leave these letters taunting the police. And that's a large part of the mystery in the Zodiac, is these letters. What's real, what's fake? How do they decrypt them? How do they decipher them? And that's a large part of the fun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when it's just handed to you in like a scene, it becomes
Doesn't feel earned.
It's less fun. It's not earned. That's exactly right.
They don't have that aha moment.
Yeah, exactly. And the movie's missing a lot of those aha moments that a good police movie should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they say it's a horror movie, but it's just as much of a police thriller.
Yeah.
All right, look, moving on, the soundtrack was amazing.
Oh, so good.
I like the soundtrack in this movie, and the performances were generally pretty good. I'm not too keen on the lead actress's performance, but that might be due to story reasons. It was a bit wooden, but that also might be
just her character, her personality.
Yeah.
Her character. That might not be the actress herself. But Nicolas Cage was great in this movie.
Oh, amazing! The only time I felt Nicolas Cage coming out was, I guess, the interrogation scene.
Yeah,
where he does a certain angle, and there's like this meme angle.
The
Nicolas Cage meme. And I'm like, yeah. Apart from that, like,
But
I would have...
he
I
was
would have
good.
been
And
like, that's Nicolas Cage doing a guy.
Yeah.
It's actually just for me, like a weird guy.
Yeah, and he was a producer on this movie, so he probably was like, "I want to make this movie. I don't want to I want to be this character."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm kind of disappointed we saw his face. I know that sounds dumb, but I like the idea of a villain like him only being shown from like the waist.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
And then maybe you see his face briefly just for a second, like a flash towards the end,
Yeah. I feel there's probably maybe an argument or like a disagreement within the production. Some people probably would have been like, let's leave it. Others were like, you got to see it eventually. I'm like, no. If it, like even in the interrogation scene, if it was just like chin and below,
That would have been sick.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is sick.
I did appreciate the fact that until the movie was released, they didn't show him.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was yeah.
I did appreciate that. You just had his
Yeah.
voice.
Which is why I think they should have kept him like you
Yeah.
said, maybe hidden or face like at least chin or below.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
Or you only see like up, like the, you know what I mean, like his nose up to his eyes. You never see the full face at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah, either way, that would have been cool. Yeah, if you just see little bits of his face at a time,
Yeah.
you never see like the full unveiling of his head. Yeah.
One thing I do want to say before we move on is I love the, maybe it's just because I like 80s movies, but I just like the satanic panic angles of some of these horror movies, like The Black Coat's Daughter and this movie. I love villains who are working directly for Satan. Not demons, not like astral entities or whatever, like in the Conjuring movies or whatever. Just straight up, the devil told me to do it. I kind of like that. Like the phone call stuff where you pick up the phone and the devil's like, do what I'm telling you. That's in The Black Coat's Daughter as well. The lady picks up the phone and Satan speaks to her in the same garbled grey tone.
Yeah.
That's why I thought maybe they're connected, because it works in the same way.
They might be.
But yeah, I just think that's so cool. I want to bring back the satanic panic kind of subgenre of horror movies. You know, serial killers working for the devil. I know it's not nice to say it's cool, but I think it's an effective storytelling technique, because like Satan just represents evil. Yeah, it's like we don't need to have, there doesn't need to be big socio-political reasons for us to have a serial killer. There doesn't need to be, not everything needs to be a whole metaphor.
yeah.
Just, you know, a bad guy working for the devil.
We've
fine.
talked about that on the show before. The whole, we're getting a bit tired of the whole, what's the word for it? The enlightened horror, where everything has to have a message, or everything has to be
a reflection of society, or a metaphor, or a message.
Everything, it usually, like these movies are a metaphor, or the subtext is it's grief all along, and there is no evil. It's just someone dealing with their trauma.
Wrong, you can make that work well, but it's like, okay, like Michael Myers is arguably the greatest horror villain of all time. But he's just a scary, crazy guy.
I mean, but some of us like trashy slashers. It's just, that's what it is.
You know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They're just crazy cannibal hillbillies.
That's it. Some of you just want a good villain, you know what I mean? And if every movie is a metaphor for a trauma, a grief, or a struggle that someone's going through, there ceases to be a good villain.
Yeah, and like, and also once you understand the metaphor, it becomes a little less scary. Does that make like...
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, well, now that I know that this movie is just about the stages of grief, or this movie is about the loss of memory or something, I'm like, well, now I'm deconstructing the movie every time I watch it. Like, okay, this scene is this scene is this, it connects to this. And suddenly there's no threat, because you know it's not...
What was that movie? What's that movie where it's a...
That is a Relic?
Yeah, Relic. The
and
movie, I cringe so hard. So there's this movie called Relic,
Australian
horror movie, where you think a woman's getting possessed, but really she's getting dementia, she's losing her memories, she's getting Alzheimer's or something like that. And she literally just starts eating photos. I'm like, she's trying to recapture her memory. I'm like, it's so ham-fisted. I'm like, stop it. Just give us a good demon possessing an old lady.
Yeah.
Not everything has to be symbolic for something else.
Yeah. Sometimes you just want evil doing evil.
That's it.
Yeah.
And this movie does provide that.
Yeah.
Not that I'm hating on these movies, but, you know, I think that they were so popular for so long, it's just nice to see straight up horror movies come back. Yeah. You know, like Barbarian, Smile.
I'll say,
I mean, Smile's a bit more metaphor-y, but...
We'll asterisk this with a horror movie that's not related to Insidious or The Conjuring.
Yeah.
Because they're always out every other year, and they're always pretty popular. Yeah. So we know they exist, but sometimes you want something different.
You want something else, yeah.
Anyway, we'll move on. We'll move on to spoilers.
Yeah.
So I guess spoiler warning for Longlegs.
It's still worth a watch.
I worth a watch for the vibes.
Compared to the absolute drivel in terms of horror movies that comes out, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's just you know, you might be disappointed by the end. That's all.
Yeah, the third act is the weakest act because all of the mysteries you had, they're literally vocally explained as they show the events on screen. It only tells. I mean, it shows as well, but like
the exposition. It such a long exposition scene. I'm just like, why you do this?
It was like 20 minutes, right?
Yeah, the big old exposition dump.
I was like, what the hell? Like, you've had a good movie going so far, and now you've just gone to be like, we're running out of time, so just this happened, and then this happened, and this is why this is happening, and this is why this is happening. And
like, you know. Okay, let's use a specific example here. So it's revealed that the main character's mother is working for the devil as well, in conjunction with
Yes.
Nicolas Cage, who lives in the basement.
Our main character, the MO of this bad guy is he works for the devil. He basically invades the house through using dolls that he makes, that he puts weird juju into metallic balls. And those dolls are given as presents. And then the family gets possessed, generally the father. They murder the whole family. And that's, causes the continuation of the cycle.
Yeah, so Ruth
Yep.
Ruth is Lee Harker's mother. Lee Harker
Yes.
being our main protagonist, played by Maika Monroe. Ruth Harker, played by Alicia Witt, is her mum, and the mum has maybe a couple of, mental health issues. She's a hoarder. She's, and she has a strained relationship with her daughter.
Yes.
And obviously, when you've got Longlegs in your basement, may not be a healthy relationship to be going home to.
Yeah.
But as is revealed, Ruth visits these homes under the guise of working for the church and gives, you've won a church raffle, like here's a doll, and the evil spirit in the doll, I guess, convinces people to go insane and kill each other. They could have done this much better by having Lee puzzle out that her mum was around the area or visiting the victims in each case and then trying to puzzle it out herself instead of just dumping on us at the end like, oh, here's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they focus too much on the... I don't want to say personal lives of the characters, but I'm trying to think... Everything just came so easy. There should have been more legwork, more interviews. Yeah. They were missing interviews. There were hardly any interviews of people.
Yeah.
There should have been document research, going through old newspapers.
Exactly. Like, for instance, right?
Then she can piece it all together.
Yeah, Ruth works allegedly for the church, right? Let's just say Lee's character could go and say, they witnessed a nun or a woman working for the church in all of these areas, and then she checks her mum's diary or something and she was in the same location, and then she questions the mum about it. Mum gets upset, tension increases. I'm like, you can do this in ways that aren't just here's what's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, technically in these types of narratives, you're supposed to have one clue or character element revealed at each location, right? So if I was, and I know everything. Obviously, I'm a genius. If I was writing this script, I would have more survivors, because then you can say, okay, so you get one piece of evidence from one survivor, which leads you to another clue. You talk to one more survivor, another clue. You put multiple clues together, leads you to another location, so on and so forth. And that way you have them working for their evidence and then linking things together, in the classic wire boards, where they link all the pieces together. If you've played Alan Wake 2, you have that big memory you have that memory palace where you have to put all the pieces together yourself. This doesn't really have that. You don't see Lee Harker putting people together and connecting locations and times.
Yeah,
so it's like, do you know what I mean? It's not a traditional narrative story.
Yeah.
Because it's too focused on keeping the vibes scary.
Yeah.
Because which is the good thing. The movie's good thing is also its downfall. Because if they actually spent time talking to people and spending time thinking about their evidence and linking it together, the vibe will lull a bit.
Yeah, it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
But, the whole idea, as you said, there should be more survivors. Obviously, the way that the nature of the doll worked is the whole family would just perish.
Yeah.
But the idea of maybe there being a friend, because this always happened around a birthday, a friend being nearby or coming to the door and witnessing a little bit, and that friend's now grown up. And I would have loved a scene where Lee goes to talk to him. And like, do you remember? He's like, I remember a nun or something coming around.
Exactly.
She looked like you.
Yeah,
because obviously
exactly.
Lee is, a lot of children look like younger versions of their parents. Yeah. So something like that would have been, amazing rather than just an exposition dump.
We got that one time, but it was it was actually a dumb scene in my opinion, with the psychiatric place.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, didn't you come here earlier? And it's clearly like an old woman. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but and the same goes for, we'll call the David Lynch aspects of the movie. Like, in the one of the very first scenes, we see Longlegs do some interesting kind of, we'll call it very Red Room-esque kind of hand motions.
Oh, Red Room for Alan is a Twin Peaks reference to where they do interesting dances and it's all occult activity.
Yeah, and he does kinds of weird, interesting kind of hand movements and gestures, and it goes unexplained. And that's fine if you're David Lynch, but mate, you don't have the credits to pull that off, and it doesn't work because
Yeah.
you're not sure what the message is meant to be. I'm like, at least with Twin Peaks, everything you can kind of puzzle out what they're meant to be alluding to or saying, or it doesn't mean anything.
The problem I had with that element, the supernatural element, is that it's pretty clear that she has some type of Lee Haka has some type of limited psychic ability straight off the bat.
Yeah.
Now, we can insinuate that that's because of the revelations made later in the film that she has something to do with, maybe it's proximity to the devil or something, I don't know.
The fact that she was at least partly earmarked to be devil food or whatever you want to call it, but then got rescued by her mother, I guess.
Instead of showing her powers and having her understand her powers as the movie goes on, leading to the ultimate confrontation in which maybe that would be a part of their battle, so to speak, they kind of just hint at it every now and again, and then she goes into this room that's unexplained throughout the rest of the film, like an FBI room, where they show her things on the wall, and she has to say what she feels, and that's a really cool scene, because it's like, obviously they're aware of some psychic ability, and this is their test to exactly figure out what's going on with it. And then it's completely unexplained. It's never mentioned again. She doesn't think about it again. And it's kind of wasted. And then I'm just trying to think, what other psychic moments did she have? And none, really. There's like a Bible reference which unlocks the whole codex for her. I'm like, no, that should have been a psychic moment. She could have been piecing it out together in dreams. Like you said, like it's Lynch inspired at points. She should have had Lynch visions. Yeah. You know, related to her psychic phenomena that help her unlock the case, at least initially, providing them with the first clue.
She should have just had visions of like Longlegs doing stuff with his hands.
Or visions in which she has some of her memories, rather than dumping them on us all at once. Make the movie maybe 30 minutes longer.
Yeah, or you
have sections in the film where she gets like a memory back. Because she's obviously, whether it's due to the nature of her devil thing, but she's obviously suppressed the whole part where Longlegs came to her house, tied her mother up, and was going to kill her.
Yeah. Or you do the cliched thing, which I'm not recommending, and but that whole kind of, maybe she has a psychic connection to Longlegs because of reasons, devil reasons. So she can see him or feel him or understand things, but he also is aware of her, so this is a different story completely. Well, but maybe he's trying to track her down as well. But that's a different film with a different ending.
You can argue that's how it works because he builds the dolls, right? Yeah. And there's a part of him in every doll. He says that. There's a part of me in every doll. And you insinuate some sort of spirit force or evil negative energy in the silver balls, which is a very David Lynch thing to do.
Yeah, and especially that moment where it pops out of her head was extremely Lynch.
Yeah, it's a very Lynch thing to do, and the dolls are a very Lynch thing to do.
I especially love the idea that like the doll's got the little shroud on it, and you can just see the eyes kind of glow.
Yeah, and Satan's sitting like, heh heh.
Yeah. And like you pull off the shroud.
just getting off on it.
As Satan would.
Yeah.
So like obviously, look, this is a movie that we do have problems with. The script is a bit messy. It's not the 5-star masterpiece that everyone's saying it is, but it's not bad either.
I think people are giving it 5-star reviews because it's one of the first horror movies in a long time that's just mean. It's uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
Because it's not even, there'll be nothing scary on screen, but you're just uncomfortable watching it. Like I said, it's threatening. And people probably aren't used to that kind of threatening film.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you want to do that, go back and watch The Shining or something. Yes, it's old now, but still, that does a great job.
Still a banger,
yeah.
Yeah.
Even The Thing. Like, maybe not The Thing, but...
But no, yeah, it's like an older type of horror, kind of horror vibes that we used to enjoy, and now everything is just jump scare. Also, props, again, the direction and filmmaking. The director knows to hold a camera still.
Yeah.
There's no shaky cam in this movie, which I did appreciate. But look, yeah, it's not the 5-star movie everyone says it is, but it's not bad either. It has a good vibe movie. I'm glad that we saw it in the movie theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got all this good surround sound and the vibes, and watching it with your buddies is a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else have any final thoughts for Longlegs?
More like is good Perkins.
Legs weren't long enough. 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
That is true. He says he was wearing his long legs, but I don't know. He was wearing his regular legs.
Did he have extra long fingers or something, or is that something that I read about on the internet, but I didn't really notice?
I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it's pretty good. It's not as good as everyone says it is, but that's okay.
Needed more detection. Needed more demonic influences and demonic voices. Needed less Nicolas Cage.
Needed an extra half an hour for them to actually talk about the clues they uncover.
Yeah.
Look, we'll be right back with more to these quick messages. You're back on the Tuesday review. So Alan had something next to talk about.
Yes. So a quick warning, content-wise, this film that I watched does deal with heavy topics such as, poverty, domestic abuse, sexual violence, that sort of thing. So just a content warning for anyone listening, if you're not into that or may have difficulties with that.
Not into that.
Sorry, if you would have difficulties with that, maybe consider skipping. Otherwise, reaching out to any help services. So
a classic Kiwi film.
Yes. So I watched Once Were Warriors. It is a film made in New Zealand by, I forget the person's name. It's based on Alan Duff's best-selling novel, and basically tells a story of the Hiki family in basically they're a Maori family living in South Auckland, basically a relatively kind of impoverished area in a government house, and kind of tells a story of what I think a lot of Maori families were going through in that time period, dealing with kind of poverty, dealing with being on the fringes of society. I think in more recent years, New Zealand has really started appreciating, Maori culture, which were, I guess we'll call it, the ancestral owners of the land.
Indigenous culture.
Yes, and they, they're a lot more kind of front or forward with the Maori representation of New Zealand, which is, I believe, now known as Aotearoa. But back in the earlier days, especially this time period, the early 90s and stuff, there's a lot of difficulties with I guess Maori individuals dealing with a Western society. So great movie overall, not very long. I think it was about 102 minutes runtime. It was, I don't know if it still is, was the highest grossing film in New Zealand, with a box office whopper of $6.7 million.
I'm playing devil's avocado here, but surely the biggest New Zealand film of the Lord of the Rings movies, mate.
Yeah.
Got him.
Well,
I'm just being a smart ass. Yeah.
That being said, in the New Zealand box office.
Yeah.
So, basically, it stars Rena Rowan as, sorry, I'll just bring it up, Beth Hickey, and Temuera Morrison, aka the Mandalorian, not the Mandalorian, Boba Fett.
Yes.
As Jake the Muss Hickey, who's the patriarch of the family. They're 5 kids, and just kind of goes through a story of Jake starts off the film losing his job, having difficulties with his family, particularly physical violence, that sort of thing. Children getting in trouble, being moved into foster care. Overall, quite a confronting kind of story. The parents, neither of them are perfect, particularly Jake being, the abusive father. But even Beth, she's, shown to be day drinking, that sort of thing.
It's only a problem when you're poor.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it sounds like a joke, but kind of true.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that when you put them in a high-class environment, the context changes.
The context does change. Yeah.
We get drunk in the middle of the day and it's sad, all right? But if you're worth $100 million...
And you're drinking at the office at 10 a.m.
Drinking at the office is called maintaining business relationships.
Just the pound move, that sort of thing. So she's also abusive to at least one of her children physically, that sort of stuff. So nobody, I think, in this movie is shown to be a perfect character. But from all accounts, they're shown to be, relatable individuals. Kind of everyone's doing it tough. There's another character who's just a young boy. I believe he's supposed to be under 18, who's living in a car. Not like his car. It's like a burnt out, completely, rusted car, and he's living under a bridge. Even their house, the Hiki household, is right off the freeway, so you just hear the motorway sounds in the whole background. Quite a confronting movie, I think, but it's definitely worth a watch. The biggest issue I kind of had with it is, again, one of their daughters, Grace, ends up being raped by a family friend, Uncle Bully, who's actually played by Cliff Curtis. He plays a lot of Mexican characters in movies.
Okay.
Yeah, he's this gentleman right here.
Oh yeah.
I think you would have seen him in Training Day and stuff. Yeah. So the actress herself, I believe she was like...
Oh, he's been tons of stuff.
Yeah. The actress...
Once Were Warriors, Three Kings, Blow, Training Day, Collateral Damage.
He's in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
The young mum and the girl, I can't pronounce her name, sorry, who plays Grace, she was about 15 at the time when the movie was made, so obviously I'm not sure the whole understanding of like, was that okay? Because obviously it's obviously not real rape, but it's a implied rape in the movie. So I'm like, again, maybe the rules
If it
and
was
regulations.
it shown on screen?
Yes.
So if it was made these days, they'd have what's... I know it's funny to say this in the context... Not funny, but it's strange to say it in the context of rape. They'd have what's called an intimacy coordinator.
Yeah.
But they probably... When did this film come out?
1994.
So I don't think they had those back then.
Yeah.
But, if they rehearsed, if they went through it vocally, here's what's going to happen, we'll do a test run. We'll show...
if the actors are comfortable with it.
Yeah, I can't imagine... they'd go into something that extreme without having a general understanding of how the actual scene's going to play out.
Yeah. So,
but that being said, there are famous scenes in movies. There was a movie Marlon Brando did.
Yes, in that movie there was no consent.
Where a woman was raped, in quotation marks, in the film, but was technically also assaulted in real life during the filming. And it ruined her life, basically. Yeah. If I'm correct, I can't remember the specifics.
You are correct.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it. It's not nice to talk about, so we'll talk about it off air.
Yeah,
it's a giant controversy or a giant stain on Marlon Brando's reputation as an actor.
Yeah.
But these things do happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's why these days they have these intimacy coordinators to
the industry's a lot
to ensure that everyone stays safe. Yeah. And protected. Again. Spoilers because this movie is from 1994, but if you are interested, it is definitely worth a watch. It's had pretty good reviews overall. I thought it was a lovely film, but in a nutshell, it is depressing. Their daughter Grace ends up taking her life because of this incident, and it does tear the family apart in a way. There's, particularly the marriage at least is definitely destroyed.
Yeah.
But in other ways, the family ends up coming together, lost because some of the children are in foster care, others are out of home. They at least kind of evaluate themselves and they decide that they do need to improve their lives. They do need to move away from the violence. Not something I'd watch on the regular. Like I try and...
it's not something you put in the background for a fun time.
Well, that's exactly, because most of the movies I try and watch are either it's an action movie or, it's like a hot movie that, we need to talk about or something. I'm not really watching something that's more... made for pure passion, or like historical cultural storytelling.
Yeah.
So it was a rarity for me, and I'm kind of ashamed that the reason why I found out about it is there's a certain scene, again, it's a domestic abuse scene, but it actually gets imitated by a television show in New Zealand. It's basically like a breakfast TV program, but it's a breakfast TV program that makes fun of breakfast TV programs.
Okay, yeah.
So they're doing like parodies of stuff. And in one of the scenes... there's a lady who's an actual professional chef, and she's teaching you how to make this, breakfast quiche or something. And she's about to cook some eggs, and the guy's like, "Cook us some eggs, bitch," or something. And that's a scene from the actual movie. What I found out is that chef didn't know she was on a goof show. she thought she was on. She thought she was on a proper breakfast show, and she was about to do this, and she was like confused as hell. Yeah. And this guy's just having a goof, and then another guy has to come and take him away and move him. And a lot of people see that scene, don't know the context, and they think that really happened on like a New Zealand breakfast TV show.
That's funny.
That's how I found out about it. And then you see the context of what the real scene was, and it's actually horrible.
Yeah.
So you feel really bad about laughing. But I think it was at least a good opportunity for me to watch a movie that I otherwise wouldn't watch. And
inform the context.
Yeah. And
I think it's good people watch a movie that confronts them every now and again. You know what I mean? Movies should be challenging. Not every movie 100%. Should be a background movie, a comedy ha-ha film. I don't. That's not to suggest everyone goes out and watches a Serbian film for a goof.
Yeah.
But, I think sometimes it is important to challenge yourself.
We should talk about that on the show.
I don't think we should. But
yeah, that's my review of Once Were Warriors. A lovely film, definitely depressing, but definitely worth a watch.
It's an important movie.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of time left. I guess I'll just give my quick thoughts on the Kevin Costner epic Horizon Part 1.
What he was making while not making
Yellowstone.
The bastard.
Yes. Look, all right, I'm going to defend Kevin Costner here just a little bit. All right, the man put his own money on the line for his vision, and it bombed, and now he may have to sell some homes. So I'm like, look, man, at least he's like going through with it. You know what I mean? At least he's like, this is my vision. I'm going to risk everything for my vision.
You know, the man knows how to follow through.
He followed through. That's it. And this is another 3.5-star movie for me.
So this, because I saw it, the recent thing was a part 2, right?
Yes. So he filmed parts 1 and 2 essentially back to back.
Okay.
With the intention of releasing the first movie in June and the second movie in August, being a theatrical event to get people to come back to the cinemas, right?
Right.
You watch part 1, then you're invested enough, you go back and see part 2.
Yeah.
And it makes everyone a boatload of money.
Yeah.
Except we're not in a, as we'll call it, a cinematic era where people want to come out for 3.5-hour westerns anymore.
No, we're not.
You know, the movies that, unless you're in India, then
Yeah.
then the 3.5-hour epics are still on the table.
Yeah, like nothing's changed there.
No, but again, you know, like we're fans of Sholay. Like this, it's a good time. But he's releasing it in America and the West, which are more keen on like 90-minute kids movies these days.
Yeah,
and Marvel.
At most, like 2 hours is you're pushing movies now.
Yeah.
Which for me, I'm like, yeah, I could do a 2.5-hour film.
But if Kevin Costner made a stage play based on his life, it would be called Hubris. Because the man is like, I'm going to do this, and it's going to be amazing, and I'm going to put my own money on it, and I'm going to put Yellowstone to the side because my vision is more important. The man has an ego the size of a house. That's fine. Look, unfortunately, it failed. But essentially, his concept is a 4-part, 12-hour Western epic, with the first 6 hours coming into theaters 2 months apart. He needs someone that's not a yes man by his side to be like, listen, Kev, maybe it's not a great idea to do this because it might, if it fails big. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Having said that, it is worth watching, but ultimately it suffers from the same problems you would assume a 12-hour movie would have. Like, it's not Lord of the Rings, you know what I mean? It doesn't have that backbone of storytelling behind it. There's not that level of detail in the story to drive it. It's dragged out a bit. You know, it's on streaming now if anyone wants to watch it. You can rent it off the digital platforms. And it's like, it has some interesting stories in there, but they're all dragged out because they have to fill the time. You know, it's a 12-hour story where they're kind of trying to stretch everything out. It does suffer from that. The cast is stacked. The cast is great. Visually, it's nice, with landscapes and nature being the high point. Like, he's coming off Yellowstone. He's like, he appreciates a good nature shot. You know, he always has. You know, like The Postman was another good movie with great nature shots. Waterworld, we love a bit of water.
Yeah.
And it sounds nice, and it's supported by a good orchestral soundtrack. No one character or thread dominates the movie. Look, I hope we get to see the rest of it. But it is a worry.
So he has released 2 parts.
No. He's released 1 part, and the next part is, at this point, coming straight to streaming. It's going to Netflix or HBO. It's not confirmed yet where it's coming.
Big oof.
So he only released part 1 so far.
Yeah, and it failed at the box office.
Right.
So they've pulled it from theaters. They're going to release it. I'm not sure if it's Netflix or HBO. I've read conflicting things. It was going to come to HBO, but apparently Netflix has been trying to buy it as well. So it's unclear yet. It's on like digital platforms and stuff now. But part 2, it's unclear where it's going to be releasing.
Okay.
I think it's still worth a watch. I just hope we get to see parts 3 and 4 because I won't be happy if we get the first 6 hours and we don't get the second.
Yeah.
If you're kind of planning it as a part 1 and part 2 this year, part 3 and part 4 next year, and it'll kind of fall on its face, and it'll be in that kind of space where it's like, well, what's the point watching the first 2 if I know I've got another 6 hours and I'm not going to see?
Yeah.
So I just hope it works
happened
out.
with me at the towards the end of Marco Polo, where like it's cancelled. I'm like, I only had a couple episodes left. I'm like,
Yeah,
Why
exactly.
finish it now?
So again, with anything like that, is it going to be a waste of my time? We'll see.
Yeah. Well, you're already you're 1/4 invested at this point.
Yeah.
So you have to get to the next 50% and then just pray.
Having said that, I'm also invested in Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, and that's I guess that's a worse issue for me.
I'm lucky that I haven't watched any of them. So when the director's cut comes out, I'm going to watch it.
That's what I was going to say. The director's cut is on August the 1st, boys.
Mm-hmm.
For Rebel Moon.
The Rebel Moon, the first 2 movies. They're like 3 hours each on Netflix. We'll have to talk about them.
All right.
Because James won't let it happen. Look. Horizons, it's a good time. Look, we'll just have to see. The future is unknown for these movies. It's, again, 3.5 stars because just there's a lot of uncertainty. And it is dragged out. It gets a bit kind of stale. Like, you just keep, I guess, doing the same story a bit too much. We're running out of time. Does anyone else have any final thoughts?
No.
Anything else you watched, Callum?
Look, I rewatched Tim Burton's Batman. Have you seen that? The original Batman movie by Tim Burton?
No.
With Michael Keaton.
With Michael Keaton, does that?
And that's Jack Nicholson as the villain.
He's Joker. Yeah.
I haven't seen it in a long time. It's very different than modern Batman movies. It's colourful. It doesn't take itself as seriously.
He can't turn his neck.
But I have to say, though, Tim Burton built sets to make this film. There's not a lot of CG, if any. So it's like it's all built. It's all practical. It feels physical. It's tangible. I feel like I could reach out and touch it when I'm watching the 4K disc. Gorgeous film. He's a genius.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's about it. Just, love me some Keaton Batman. And then they ruined it by putting nipples on the Batsuit.
Yeah. All right. Look, keep an eye on the social media, everybody, because there's going to be some exciting things coming up in the next week or two.
Yes.
We may or may not be going to a premiere.
Well, I guess we can spill the beans, can't we?
Yeah, we can spill the beans. We've got tickets.
Yeah.
We were, I guess, lucky enough to be invited personally by the director of a film called Residence, which we haven't looked into too much about what it is because we'd like to be surprised by the movie.
Yeah.
So we're going in kind of blind, but we know it's some sort of like slasher movie or something. So I'm not going to look up too much about what it's about because I'd rather not know.
Yeah. I'd rather not have any expectation.
Exactly.
Just a little bit of cursory knowledge is enough.
Yeah. So we're lucky enough to be invited to this world premiere of the movie in a couple of weeks' time in the city. We might take some photos and stuff, throw them on the social media, and maybe we'll talk to the director if he wants to do an interview later on. That could be exciting, and we're hoping to do other couple of interviews. It's around that season where
Things
kind of myth happens, PAX happens, stuff happens. So there'll be more going on the social media kind of presence. So definitely keep an eye on that. A lot going on in the studio.
And if you want more of the bonus content, which is primarily video footage, hit up the YouTube.
Yes. Some board game reviews on there, some stuff like that, some PAX footage.
Comic-Con footage.
Comic-Con footage.
With us complaining in the background. It's great.
All right. I reckon that's all we've got for tonight.
Yeah.
Please like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page, Instagram page, Threads page, Newsmask page, Blue Sky page, Twitter page, and the YouTube page at Tuesday Review AU. We also have Letterboxd accounts. I'm Nathan B _90. Alums is Alum20. Callum's is Callum Tuesday. James is channeldrifter. I don't know if we've got the movies in here. We'll see.
Screw James.
He's
come back and earn his keep.
That's it. He's sitting at home right now, like going full agoraphobic, photoshopping himself into European cities.
I'm hoping I did ask him to take pictures of the movie theaters he finds in Europe, and we can post them on socials and stuff like that. That could be fun.
We'll see. I reckon that's all we've got. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.